Good afternoon. Welcome back to Whitaker Bank and Dig Frankfort's October candidate forums. This afternoon we have with us candidates for magistrates for the Franklin Circuit Court, the Franklin Fiscal Court, Franklin County Fiscal Court. My apologies. I'll give them an opportunity in just a minute to introduce themselves and identify which magisterial district they are a candidate for. A couple of things that we went over earlier that I'll remind you, if you haven't done so already, I ask you to please silence your phones out of respect for the candidates and them being able to provide answers without interruptions. As we saw or heard from the previous forum, I cannot impact the train schedule. So R.J. Corman has a train going down Broadway, which here in this building, those windows aren't very thick, so I apologize to viewers and others that that may have watched or will watch the circuit judge candidate forum that we got a little background noise there. So other than that, we don't want any cell phones going off or other conversations or chatter. When we get through a number of questions that Dig Frankfort has put together, assuming we have some time left, we usually have a few minutes at the end. I will give Dig members an opportunity to pose a question, and as we've done in the past, we're out of respect to all the candidates. We ask you not to pose them to individual candidates, but to all of them, give them all an opportunity to respond. But before we start with the questions, I wanted to read a statement real quick. You'll notice that we have 4 magistrate candidates. That is not all the candidates for magistrate in the Franklin County Fiscal Court that will be on your ballot in November. So because of that, I would like to, our committee that put together the questions has put together an opening statement that I'd like to read to you real quick. It reads, Dig Frankfort invited all magistrate candidates, both contested and uncontested, to this forum to answer a few important questions about Franklin County's lack of population growth over the past 30 years, while all of our neighboring communities have grown substantially during that time and in many respects are thriving economically compared to us. When some candidates indicated that today's date conflicted with fall break travel plans, we offered to change the date of today's forum if they would commit to participating. Few incumbent candidates chose not to do that, and they're not present today to answer our questions. They offered various reasons for their absence. Dig Frankfort believes that our community's elected officials are accountable to Franklin County voters and their families, and we will continue as an organization to publicly provide this community with information supported by facts and data in an effort to help our elected officials and their appointees make informed and reasonable decisions. Our goal is that these decisions, unlike many made over the last 30 years, will begin to benefit all of Franklin County and provide economic opportunities to its citizens. If you haven't met Brent Simpson sitting directly in front of you, he is my timekeeper. When I ask a question, I will inform you at the time I ask the question how much time you'll have to respond to that question, and then based on that amount of time, and it may change from question to question, Brent will keep time for you, and he has cards to indicate how much longer you have. And then we ask you to, out of respect for your fellow candidates and the timing, to get through as many questions as we can, ask you to please be respectful of that. Okay, so our first question, it's not really a question, I'm just asking you to take 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds, Brent, and we'll begin with Mr. Grimes. I ask you to just take 30 seconds and give us your professional educational background.
Well, my name is Greg Grimes. I'm running for 3rd District Magistrate here in Franklin County. I was born and raised right here in Franklin County, graduate of Franklin County High School. My wife of 11 years, Nikki, she is a preschool teacher at the Frankfort Christian Academy, and I have 2 children, Lila and Eli, who are 8 and 6, who are the reason behind me running. Thank you.
Ms. Dycus.
My name is Kelly Dycus. I'm also running for 3rd District Magistrate here in Franklin County. I graduated from Western Hills High School. I have an undergrad degree in Human Services from Murray State University and a graduate degree from Eastern Kentucky State University, and I have a business here in downtown Frankfort. I'm a therapist, mental health counselor, and I'm also the interim director at the Sunshine Center currently.
Go ahead, Richard.
I'm Richard Tanner. I live in Huntington Woods subdivision. I've lived in this county for 33 years. I got a master's degree from Murray State University, and I was executive director of the Kentucky Magistrates and Commissioners Association for 25 years. I've experience in county government. It runs 40 years. I understand what we can do. I have ample experience to take care of any issue. Thank you.
Mr. Sanderson.
Hi, I'm Darrell Sanderson. I'm running for Magistrate for the 4th District. I have lived here for 66 years. I graduated from Frankfort High School. Upon graduating, I joined the Navy, served 6 years there. When I came back, I joined the National Guard. I've lived here all my life. I've served on the current Planning and Zoning Board for approximately 10 years. I know what works and what doesn't work and ways to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. On this next question, I'll begin with Ms. Dycus, and what we'll do as I change who responds first, we'll simply continue to go to your left. So on this one, we'll pose this one to Ms. Dycus, and you have 90 seconds, Brent, to respond to this question. Tell us your first priority, if elected to serve, and tell us why you decided to run for this office.
I decided to run for this office because I see a whole lot of people living in Franklin County that no longer feel like they're a part of Franklin County. We have a lot of people that have mental health and substance abuse issues that are struggling. We have families that are struggling. And I think that what happens is they get something on their criminal record, they try to get help with their issues, and then they kind of get pushed to the side. And we need to bring them back in. We need to bring them back in also because if we don't have enough people working, and that has to be a part of economic development in Franklin County. We don't have enough people working. So that's why I'm running. That's what I know about, that's what I'm good at, and I think that that's what I can help fiscal court with.
Mr. Tanner.
Thank you. I appreciate you all putting this together and allowing us to express our opinions. My first priority as magistrate of the 5th District, or magistrate here in Franklin County, will be to make sure that the budget is balanced and reflects the desires of the people of fiscal court. The whole agenda of the county is run through the budget. If you want more economic development, you put more money in economic development. If you want more recreation, that's where you put the money. There is certain obligations. Obviously, you have to fund mandates such as the jail and corrections, and those things have to be funded. That's mandates. But after that, you got a certain amount of money left, and you have to understand how to disperse that money. I agree that we have to encourage development of this county, and any extra money we have will be focused towards that. If my say-so will go to that. People who live here and want their children to stay here, or the people that are here want to have an ample income, they want to have a good place to work, they want industry in here. Economic development is very important. Community development is also very important. You have to have a good place to live and to stay, or you're not going to want to stay here. When I start my term, I will do my very best to represent the people of 5th District, including everybody in Franklin County.
Thank you. Mr. Sanderson.
Well, my first plan is the idea of having meetings with the people of the 4th District. I've been a citizen here for 66 years inside my military time. I've never had representation, as far as I'm concerned, from my magistrate. He's never asked me my opinion. He's never asked anything. And I think it's important that the magistrate bring the people together of his district at least once or twice a year. Meet with them, get their opinions and their input on what's good for the district and what is good for Franklin County as well, and we're not doing that. And I truly believe that I am not being represented as from my current magistrate, and I feel like that is something that's very important to me, that we have meetings to bring in the people of the district so that we know what serves everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grimes.
I don't just have one goal once elected for magistrate. I really think that Lakeview Park needs to be a main priority. We need to have something for our children to do. I mean, like I said in my opening statement, I have 2 children, and the children of the community are the reason behind me running. You have to give children something to come back home to once graduating high school or college to start career jobs. If not, they'll just move off to somewhere else and, you know, take that tax revenue money and all that with them. But another goal of mine will be to collaborate with Kentucky State University and have those students, after graduating, possibly open up a business here in Frankfort. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the next question will begin with Mr. Tanner. And you have 90 seconds to respond. The question reads, as business leaders in Franklin County, we have experienced continuous roadblocks such as non-competitive tax rates, outdated land use planning and building code processes, and excessive redevelopment regulations in pursuit of capital investment and growth opportunities. How will you promote the necessary change that will make us a more business-friendly community? 90 seconds.
Well, that's a several-stage question, and I'll do my very best to answer that. Right now, they're working on a new comprehensive plan. It hadn't been a new one in the last 20 years. They're out of property to develop. We have to have another industrial development area somewhere or multiple ones, and they're working on that plan. Everybody that's listening to this or sitting here needs to encourage those people and work with them to come up with a good plan. Number 2 is I think that the planning and zoning and those commissions that are involved in our development have to expedite their meetings and business and research so they can have findings of fact and move forward rapidly. There's no need of kicking the ball down the road over and over and over again and putting off making decisions because you ain't got enough guts to make them. I will step forward and do my very best to see that we move forward with anything. Putting things off, you definitely have to have time to research and make good, solid decisions and not just shoot from the hip all the time. But still, once you know, then you need to move forward with that. Thank you.
Mr. Sanderson.
Well, I currently sit on the Planning and Zoning Board, and we are dealt difficult situations every month. People want to develop where development maybe not should be. And we want to eat up the county more than we should be sometimes. I know currently there's several issues on the board, or issues in the county right now with different areas that don't want development in their areas. Well, it's tough if your business is in that area, you don't want to leave that area. You want to stay as close to that as possible. And it's tough on everybody to try to make everybody happy. And it's a very hard situation a lot of times when you're dealing with the public and dealing with all the different issues that come into development and progress for Franklin County. I'm not sure that all the issues that are currently out are easy to solve. We do go around in circles a whole lot. And as a fiscal court, it gives me more opportunity to invest and be a part of and make better decisions and more decisions that are more countywide. Thank you.
Mr. Grimes.
I think we have to have more communication as far as, participants in the comprehensive plan. The Lakeview Park is a park that needs to be developed, and also we need to make sure that planning and zoning is business friendly. The Duncan Road project was a no-brainer, and it should have been dealt with years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dycus?
Can you ask that question again, please?
Yes, ma'am. As business leaders in Franklin County, we have experienced continuous roadblocks, such as non-competitive tax rates, outdated land use planning and building code processes, and excessive redevelopment regulations in pursuit of capital investment and growth opportunities. How will you promote the necessary change that will make us a more business-friendly community?
So this is going to shock people because I am a Democrat, hardcore Democrat. I hate red tape. I hate it in pretty much all ways. I think we have to really look at, there's, you know, I wrote federal grants for years, and the red tape is ridiculous, and it's no different in government. We have to really look at the things that we can cut out to make sure that we're not putting up roadblocks to business, because we need it badly. We all know that. But the other thing that we have to do is we have to decide who we are and what we want in this county. And I don't think sometimes we do a very good job of that. So I feel like, you know, communicating and deciding who we are, what we want to be, where we want to go is what we have to do first. And then we have to cut out some of the red tape to be able to get that stuff in here and become who we want to be. We don't have state government to do that for us all the time anymore. So we have to make those really difficult decisions.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we'll start with Mr. Sanderson. You have 1 minute to respond. Give us your assessment of the Franklin County Fiscal Court's current operating budget and how you would make it more effective for taxpayers.
That's a hard question. I think we need to look at our budget and look what the county as a whole is looking for need-wise. I think maybe that sometimes we raise our taxes and for specific reasons, and then we don't ever lower them back once that reason is resolved. So as far as the budget, I just think we need to look at it, make sure we're spending the money in the right places, and do the best we can as far as being responsible to the whole county.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes.
Can you repeat that question?
Yes, sir. Give us your assessment of the Franklin County Fiscal Court's current operating budget, and how would you make it more effective for taxpayers?
I would kind of look into who's bringing in the most as far as economic growth, like the organizations that we participate with in funding. We need to look at who is bringing in, you know, the growth for the overall growth of Franklin County, instead of just handing money out to whoever. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Dycus?
I don't know a lot about our current budget, to be honest. I haven't seen it. What I will say is what I said a minute ago. We've got to decide what we want, who we want to be, and decide what's necessary to spend our money on. I think that, you know, everybody's asking for money all the time. I ask for money all the time from our county, and I think what I want it for is really important. But we've got to ask people that live here what's important to them, and make the decisions based on what this county wants and needs. Thank you.
Mr. Tanner?
Well, personally, as I mentioned before, you got to understand the budget and what you want to do with the budget. If you're talking about reducing the budget, I don't necessarily think that's that's a goal. I think you need to make sure that the money is spent wisely and put where the people in this county want it to be put. If you want more money in the Humane Society, then put some more in there. But if the balance is balanced, if the budget is balanced, you got to decide where you're going to take it from. Are you going to reduce economic development to increase the Humane Society? Or are you going to cut down recreation to increase the Humane Society and economic development? All these decisions have to be made, and somebody's got to make them. I did not do a good job of talking about taxes a while ago, which was part of that question, and I apologize for that. But I'm going to have to stop. I'm going to run out of time. But give me about 4 or 5 more minutes, and I'll work on that.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we'll start with Mr. Grimes. You have 1 minute to respond. In reference to fiscal court board appointments, if elected, what do you think your role is, and how will you consider recommended appointments to ensure that appointed individuals are qualified to responsibly serve the mission of the organization to which they are appointed?
I think it needs to be a team deal. I think you need to take politics out of it instead of having just your city commission, mayor, and the judge, appoint them. I think it needs to be a team involvement. You need to have the magistrates involved in everything. Maybe even, get the community's involvement. Thank you.
Ms. Dycus.
That's hard for me, but I think that the entire community, all the business leaders need to have something to do with that. I think we need to have appointments from different community leaders, different businesses. I don't think that it just needs to be the mayor and the judge, and I don't think that it all needs to be up to them. I don't think that's worked very well for us at this point. I think we need people that have some expertise, maybe more than we've had in the past. Thank you.
Mr. Tanner.
Almost all appointments that are made to boards and commissions in the county are made by the county judge and approved by the fiscal court. The county judge's responsibility to find those qualified people who are actually willing to serve and put those names forward to fiscal court and let them decide yes or no, up or down, based on whether they're qualified or not and whether they're dedicated individuals. I think if you don't want somebody on a board, you need to stand up and say why you don't want to. This person, because the judge is already, whoever that judge is already vetted that person supposedly. You can't, Sanderson knows over here, it ain't easy. It's not, let me get my grammar almost correct. It's not easy to serve on the planning commission and find somebody to do it. You almost have to have a gun to hold on them to do it. I've been down that road too, and I know it's a tough job, but most of them are. I'm sorry.
Mr. Sanderson.
Well, being a member of the planning and zoning does make it tough, but it's the idea that, one, you got to make sure whoever you're wanting to put on the board is a lifelong member of the county and has a lot of interest in the county. A lot of times, some of the people put on the board are very closed-minded, and I think one of the biggest things is you've got to think out of the box a lot of times. You've got to make sure the person you're wanting to put on a board is capable of serving on that board and is willing to spend the time it takes to do the board. It's not always easy, but the ideal is to make sure the person that's wanting to do or you're wanting to put on the board is willing to serve and has the time and opportunity to serve on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Ms. Dycus. And this is a quick one. You have 10 seconds to respond. It's basically a yes or no question. You can take up to 10 seconds. So I don't think you need to refer to Brent. If you take more than 10, I'll tap you out. Okay, yes or no? Do you support a text amendment to our current zoning ordinance in Franklin County to allow warehousing of distilled spirits in an agricultural zone?
I don't know. That is the truth. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Mr. Tanner?
I can't answer anything in 10 seconds. But I would have to be more understanding, and I will get that way, whether I support, this is not 10 seconds, I'm sorry. Under certain conditions, yes, under certain conditions.
Mr.
I
Sanderson?
need to hear the question one more time.
Yes, sir. It's basically a yes or no response.
Right.
Do you support a text amendment to our current zoning ordinance in Franklin County to allow warehousing of distilled spirits in an agriculture zone?
I think I'm allowed to answer this. I'm not really sure, but yes.
Okay. Mr. Grimes?
Yes, we have to do something to get revenue flowing and good career jobs in here, so absolutely.
Okay, the next question will begin with Mr. Tanner. And you have 1 minute to respond. Dig Frankfort believes that the Franklin County Fiscal Court over the last few years has actively undermined Kentucky Capital Development Corporation, otherwise known as KCDC. What is your commitment to KCDC, economic development in general, and to job growth in Franklin County?
I support KCDC until something better comes along. It's not fiscal court's responsibility to micromanage any of those things. It's their decision to decide whether or not you want economic development or not, and you do that through the budget. It's clear. It's not very difficult. Why would you want to do away with that? I support economic development. The industrial development and economic development are two different things, but it's an interchangeable word here in this county because it technically means growth in businesses and tourism right down the line. But industrial growth is smokestack chasing, which if you're going to do that, you need to make sure you get a really good one that's not going to leave you in 10 or 12 years. So all that has to be put together. And who's going to do that? Members of fiscal court? I mean, we got a lot of experience and a lot of setting up here, but they don't go down that experienced.
Mr. Sanderson?
I think there needs to be growth in every community, especially Franklin County. But it needs to be smart growth, and a lot of times it needs to be infield growth and not just sporadically growing anywhere and everywhere. A lot of times we want to redevelop property to put growth in it, but it's not smart growth, and that's why it's turned down. But we need to make sure that when we're looking at growth and economic development in Franklin County, we need to make sure that we're doing it for the purpose of everybody in the county and not just one or two individuals, and that the county is definitely prospering off of that growth.
Mr. Grimes?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Dig Frankfort believes that the Franklin County Fiscal Court has actively undermined Kentucky Capital Development Corporation over the past several years in budget cycles. What is your commitment to KCDC, economic development in general, and to job growth in Franklin County? 1 minute.
I agree with Mr. Sanderson on that one. I mean, we need to, infill before we sprawl out. But as far as funding KCDC, I would absolutely support funding them for the simple reason of economic development and economic growth of Franklin County. Thank you.
Ms. Dycus?
So I actually, every time I'm asked this, I always have to say I don't know much about KCDC because I just haven't heard a lot about them. So I've read a lot recently, and it looks to me like KCDC is doing a really good job with the funding that they have or she has. I read an article yesterday, I guess, talking about, and I know she's back there somewhere, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that she's working with other agencies similar to that one that's going along 64. I think that's a great idea. I think that communication is needed, maybe. Better communication is needed for KCDC to feel like they can do more. But I agree with funding KCDC until at least we decide that there's something better that we can do. I don't think fiscal court can do all of that. Thank you.
Okay, our next question will begin with Mr. Sanderson. You have 30 seconds to respond. Do you support industrial development in Franklin County, and if so, where?
Yes, I do support growth in Franklin County, and we have industrial parks. support the fact of them growing to a larger area, but I don't always agree to the fact of taking up farms to do that.
Mr. Grimes?
Can you repeat that again?
Yes, sir. Have 30 seconds to respond. Do you support industrial development in Franklin County, and if so, where?
I do support it. I think that there's some land that could be used out on 127 South, and we could also probably look into collaborating with other counties.
Ms. Dycus?
I absolutely support it. I think we need to pay attention to our neighbors, though. We need to listen to the people of Franklin County about where that growth is, where that happens. There's lots of "I don't want that in my backyard" going on right now. It's a very emotional subject, so we just need to pay attention to where we do that and how people feel about that, and make sure that the growth that it makes sense.
Mr. Tanner?
As I said before, industrial development and economic development are actually two different definitions, but if you take industrial development included in economic development, I am definitely for that. Right now, the comprehensive plan that they're developing and is supposed to be through with in 2023 is utmost important that it is expands our areas that we can grow. Whoever is elected to fiscal court this next time will be those who vote yes or no on that plan.
Thank you. The final question that our committee put together for our candidates will begin with Mr. Grimes, and then we should have a couple minutes left to take one or two questions from DIG members in the audience after that. So the next question, again, we'll begin with Mr. Grimes. You have 1 minute to respond. The local tax rates are higher than surrounding communities, while we are behind in housing development, population growth, utility costs, etc. And many communities have been able to reduce their tax rates because of successful growth strategies and increased property values. How do you plan to increase Franklin County's competitiveness with our surrounding communities? You have 1 minute.
I think we should start off by looking into planning and zoning. We need to make it more simple for people to come in for opening business. I mean, like Kelly said, there's too much red tape. We need more of a one-stop shop for business owners to come in and say, you need A, B, and C, and then you do A, B, and C, and then you get your stuff that you need. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Dycus?
Will you ask that again?
Yes, ma'am. Franklin County's local tax rates are higher than surrounding communities, while we are behind in housing development, population growth, utility costs, etc. And many of these other communities have been able to reduce their tax rates because of successful growth strategies and increased property values. How do you plan to increase Franklin County's competitiveness with surrounding communities?
So I think one of the things we have to do is increase affordable housing stock, which we have not done a great job of. The other thing I think that we have to do is exactly what I said in the beginning, is bring people in that want to work. We keep people out of the workforce because of past mistakes and things like that. We need training programs. We need job training programs of some sort. So I think making this a friendlier county to work in would be helpful. Better housing, cheaper housing would be helpful.
Mr. Tanner.
Franklin County has got to grow. Shelby County and Scott County, both, which is right on each side of us, are predicted to grow, and we're not in the next few years. I don't know where it's 10, but next few. Obviously, we're not going to compete with Lexington and Louisville, which is also on each side of us, but and I want to say one thing about the tax rate in Franklin County. I might be wrong, but I believe the compensating rate, and everybody in here probably knows what the compensating rate is, has reduced the tax rate in Franklin County for the last couple of years. And so it is competitive, and you get sometimes what you pay for. If you want to compare yourself to all the surrounding counties, I mean, they got unbelievable growth in Georgetown, and so they don't, they got occupational tax over there that's probably funding 4 times as much as what we got. I mean, they got schools that Toyota build for them. State government don't build us schools. They'll pay, the employees pay taxes, but the state government cannot do that.
Mr. Sanderson.
Well, one of the things we need to pay attention to, and everybody in Franklin County needs to be involved in, is a comprehensive plan. I've been to several of the meetings, and we may have 30 or 40 people there, but there's a whole lot more people than that in Franklin County. And everyone needs to take part in the comprehensive plan so it can be done for growth. It can be done so the people, we can figure out where to have the growth at in Franklin County, where it doesn't infringe on anybody else, and where we have the opportunity to increase our tax base from that, especially from commercial growth. And we need to be able to have much more commercial growth in our county in order to increase our tax base so that we can do the projects and the things we need to have in Franklin County.
Thank you. At this time, if you're a DIG member and you have a question that you would like to pose to all 4 candidates, raise your hand. I'll recognize you and come up to the microphone, and we'll do that real quick. Craig. And once Craig asks the question, we'll begin with Ms. Dycus this time and go around. And once he asks the question, I'll decide if it's 30 seconds or a minute.
Concerning Lakeview Park, there's huge sports tourism potential. I've watched all the primary plant board interviews that y'all did early on. Could you tell us your positions from the primary, and if you've changed your mind today as we go into the general election concerning Lakeview Park development, the large building the multi-sports building that's going to be there, and if you're supporting what's the Sports Tourism Commission?
30 seconds. Go ahead.
So I would support the Sports Tourism Commission. I do not support the building at Lakeview Park. I don't think that's the place for it, and no, I have not changed my mind on that.
Mr. Tanner.
Working on the Lakeview Park to make it a better place for the people of this county to go and have their children and their grandchildren and themselves to have recreation. It probably does need to be looked at and they have some people studying that right now. We do need to go forward with that. A 70,000 square foot building out there is a big undertaking with millions of dollars, and you're certainly going to have to look at that very hard of how you're going to fund it if you do it at all. I don't think my position has changed. I don't remember what I said.
Mr. Sanderson.
Well, I think the Lakeview project should go. We do need a better sports complex in this town where it serves the community much better. I'm not sure that Lakeview is the right place, but I do know that we need the sports complex. Also, I think that we need to have more involvement. I know currently Lexington comes into Frankfort to oversee our youth soccer programs. That's ridiculous. We need to make sure that our programs are overseen locally and are taken care of and are done to where it's much growth in the county.
Mr. Krabs.
How much time do I get?
30 seconds.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so Lakeview Park is 132 acres. The sports complex, even if you built it at 100,000 square foot, would only be roughly like 2.6 acres. So that leaves you with 130 acres. So I'm absolutely in favor of the sports complex and Lakeview Park. Thank you.
Are you paying for it?
Okay. Ms. Dycus, did we start with you? Did we start with you? Yes. Okay, sorry, I lost my place. Do we have any other DIG members that would like to pose a question to the candidates before we conclude? Okay, Seeing none, that will conclude our magistrate candidate forum. Wanted to say thanks again to our four candidates that took time out of their day to be with us and to share their responses and ideas on the future of Franklin County. Would also, not just for DIG members, but for every voter in Franklin County, I want to encourage you to learn as much about your magistrate candidate as you can and encourage you to vote in November. And thank you all very much for being with us. That concludes our forum.